We wanted to get to, this is actually very interesting. So obviously in the wake of Roe being overturned, one of the things that came out of that is Justice Thomas, in his concurrence, wrote that, hey, you know what? Some of these other decisions that we're accepting as like, oh, this is precedent, they should also be overturned. He specifically name-checked the gay marriage decision, and he also name-checked the right to contraception decision. And so Democrats eventually, after they, spent a few weeks sort of spinning their wheels and not doing much of anything and not really having a plan, have decided, hey, maybe some of these rights that they put on the table, maybe we shouldn't fumble the ball this time the way that we did with Roe. Maybe this time we actually should try to codify them, and at the very least, we'll put Republicans on the spot and show how dissonant they are, how much distance there is between their position and where the American people are. So gay marriage in particular has been a big question mark. The bill to codify gay marriage at the federal level passed through the House with some Republican support. I think it was about maybe a quarter of the caucus that voted for it, which I guess you could look at it as like, oh, that's a lot of Republicans, or you could look at it as like, that's kind of pathetic that only a quarter of the caucus ultimately voted for gay marriage. But anyway, that's where that is. Big question mark whether or not this thing can get through the Senate. Of course, it requires 60 votes. That means you need 10 Republicans on board, which is, a significant number. Right now, you're at about 5 Republicans who have publicly said, yeah, we would go ahead and support it. So anyway, Senator Graham, who, would be among those who would be voting for codifying gay marriage, was pressed on his views on the issue and got very uncomfortable with the line of questioning. Let's take a listen to what he said.
Gay marriage, at least that is what Rob Portman wants. He's trying to get enough votes to codify same-sex marriage because Justice Clarence Thomas suggested that it might be in jeopardy. You said 2 weeks ago that the state-by-state approach is the best way to go. So I just want to be clear about your position. Are you saying that the 2015 Supreme Court decision that made same-sex marriage the law of the land nationally should be overturned?
No, I am saying that I don't think it's going to be overturned.
Nor should it be?
Well, that'd be up to the court. The reasoning, I think, could be attacked, but the point I'm trying to make is I've been consistent. I think states should decide the issue of marriage and states should decide the issue of abortion. I have respect for South Carolina. South Carolina voters here, I trust, to define marriage and to deal with the issue of abortion, not 9 people on the court. That's my view.
How far down should how wide should that go? How many more issues should that go to? For example, Loving versus Virginia, that allowed interracial marriage. That shouldn't be touched.
No, so here's the point. We're talking about things that are not happening because you don't want to talk about inflation, you don't want to talk about crime. This is all politics, my friends. Instead of trying to solve problems like unstable people having guns, we're talking about constitutional decisions that are still in effect. But if you're going to ask me to have the federal government take over defining marriage, I'm going to say no.
Wow, getting a little bit dicey.
Yeah, so there's a few things to note there. First of all, when she goes down the path of, okay, interracial marriage, should that be left to the states? He doesn't have an answer. He has to dodge and just say, we should really just be talking about inflation. This was also one of the critiques levied at Justice Thomas when he wrote that concurrence, which is interesting that if you extend his logic, it also would apply to Loving versus Virginia in a very similar way, and that was conveniently left off the table because, of course, at this point, it would be, for most of America, would really be abhorrent to say, oh, we should let the states decide whether interracial marriage
But what I actually found even more curious about that is that he kept going after the court, and we're like, we're not talking about the court, dude. We're talking about the Senate, where you're actually a member, and you represent South Carolina.
Exactly.
It's like, so what are you going to do on behalf of South Carolina?
And he has nothing meaningful to say there.
Well, if you think that the South Carolina state would vote in order to codify gay marriage, then as the senator from South Carolina, why wouldn't you just vote for it then? So
right.
This is, this exposes a lot of the problems that they have. And it also does show you, they're putting them in a very tough position on these votes. And actually, I think it is actually a very smart political move. It's interesting too, because in terms of the politics, this is going to be a real tough one because it does look like a majority of Republicans are probably going to vote against it. However, there is a lobbying campaign on the inside. Let's go ahead and put this up there on the screen. Senator Tammy Baldwin, who herself is gay, is actually one of the people who is lobbying hard. Fellow Republicans and actually to try and vote for the bill. The most surprising one, really, to me so far was Senator Ron Johnson, who is from Wisconsin, her home state colleague. But beyond that, publicly had said that he would, publicly has been very iffy on whether he was going to support this or not. He came out and said that he would vote for it. Now, he is citing his friendship with his colleague and all that. I think it has to do, he's up for re-election in a tough state.
Absolutely.
This is Wisconsin.
Absolutely.
This is not Alabama. You know, it's not an evangelical state. Yes, there's a Catholic population, but the Trump voters in those states are far more likely to be pro-choice even than the median GOP voter. Sorry, I said pro-choice. Well, actually, pro-choice is not a terrible proxy for these types of things.
True.
But if you look at it, you know, especially in that regard, Senator Johnson, and outside of the, you know, the people like Susan Collins and Murkowski, who are already on the record and kind of long been for this, they really do have the opportunity, Krystal, to get to the 10 votes. Right now, they have Rob Portman of Ohio. I think his son is gay. I remember that being a thing.
Yeah, he was, I think, the first one to say that he would sign on to this.
Lisa Murkowski, Susan Collins, but also Tom Tillis of North Carolina. That's also an interesting one. And remember this, Senator Tillis actually just won re-election. So it's not like he's doing this for political benefit, or maybe he is, because, I mean, didn't Obama win North Carolina in 2008?
Yeah.
So it's a red state.
It was,
as we would define
close with
today.
Biden this time around,
It was,
too.
yeah, exactly. It's not a 30-plus Republican state, right? And I think that's the way to say it. So when these guys who are in these states where you're only winning by +3, +5, even up to +7, they're in a bit of a difficult spot. And it's actually going to be interesting. I mean, you know, Rubio came out and said that it was a stupid vote in order to be taken. But listen, I mean, it's not like Florida is like the reddest state in the world. I'm not saying that Republicans aren't winning right now. It's probably anywhere between R+3 and R+5. But I would be fascinated, actually, to look at the polling in the state of Florida. I haven't seen anything by Ron DeSantis who said anything about this either on the state level, which also is usually, I think he's very much at the forefront of these things, and he's a good, like, tea leaf reader as to how these things are going to play, and he hasn't said a damn word.
Good barometer.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good thing to track.
Some 70% of Americans at this point support gay marriage.
Yes.
So if you are opposed to this, you are very much out of step with where the American people are. And as you said, even if they manage to cobble together 10 Republicans to get this thing across the finish line, you still have the overwhelming bulk of the caucus voting against where the majority of the American people are. And this is one where, you know, at this point, most people have accepted. They know gay people, lots of gay people. They know people who are married who are gay. They know, you know, this is part of their family, part of their friend circle, part of their community. And so to have this be such a difficult issue for the Republicans at this point is really very telling. So the senators who have said they're on board right now are Susan Collins, Rob Portman, Lisa Murkowski, Tom Tillis, and Ron Johnson. Tammy Baldwin, who, as you said, is kind of leading the outreach here to Republicans, has said that privately, at least 5 other Republicans have given her assurances they will also support the bill when this is brought to the floor sometime after Labor Day. And we also actually just got the news this morning that Schumer is saying we're going to bring this to the floor in September. So it really is, there's some drama around this because a private assurance is very different than going on the record in the press with the media and saying, I'm there. And there's also a question of, you know, and this gets into some of the Senate mechanics, will they also be on board with the vote to bring it to the floor, to get it past cloture, or would they just be on board with if it gets to the floor, then I guess I'll ultimately vote for it? It has clearly put Republicans in a very difficult spot. And the Rubio excuse is, to me, so silly and so transparent. Like, okay, let's say you really think this is a waste of time, even though you have a Supreme Court justice out there right now saying, actually, I think we should overturn this. But it's not like you saying you're not going to vote for it is going to keep it from coming to the floor. So, all right, just don't focus on it. Cast your vote, say yes, and move on to focus on whatever the things are that you think you should focus on. Not to mention the Senate wastes time on all kinds of dumb bullshit all the time.
I was going to say, so if Republicans controlled the floor, then I guess you could make a time argument.
Yeah.
But they don't. So it's like now you're just a senator who's in the minority.
You're just I mean, it's just very you can tell it's Weasley. You can tell they're trying to dodge. Same thing with Lindsey Graham and that SOT that we showed. He doesn't want to answer directly. He doesn't want to say directly what he thinks about it. He doesn't want to say directly like how this relates to other Supreme Court decisions like interracial marriage. And we saw this after Roe 2, the best argument they could come up with was like, oh, we should leave it to the states to decide. But then you had a lot of people giving up the game and also pushing for a federal ban on abortion, which is the opposite of leaving it to the states
It's
to
like,
decide.
but then
And also
Kansas did, and then they shut their mouths.
and then they're like, oh, maybe we shouldn't leave it to the states to decide.
You know, it's not like it wasn't predictable, but some of us tried to tell you.
Cable news is ripping us apart, dividing the country, making it impossible to function as a society, and making it impossible to know just what is true and what is false. But the good news is they are failing and they know it.
That is why we're building something new, a new mainstream, a healthier one, something more trustworthy, something that we are going to need in one of the most pivotal times in American history. We are building up here for the midterms, for the upcoming presidential election, but we need your help. So if you can help us out by becoming a premium member today at breakingpoints.com, we're trying to change America for the better and the entire world.
So what are you waiting for, guys? Go to breakingpoints.com and sign up and help us build a new mainstream.